Hello everyone, thank you for joining this short event today. I'm going to have 45 minutes or so to tell you about enterprise risk management in the Microsoft Cloud. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Gero Renker. I'm co-founder of Program Framework, and we are a Microsoft partner. We've been around since 2005, implementing project portfolio and risk management solutions in the Microsoft Cloud. And the key products that we have out in the market are branded Power Framework PPM, Power Framework Risk, and it is the risk application that we are going to talk about in some detail today. Let me briefly talk about the key challenges that we see with our customers in the context of risk management. And maybe you can relate to some of those. Typically, we find that risk management is a little bit of a stepchild of processes in a lot of organizations. Usually, we find informal processes. There isn't necessarily a great deal of culture around risk management. The tools that are in place are either siloed, dedicated risk tools that are not necessarily widely adopted and only used by a very small number of people in the organization, or more commonly, it's Excel. And lots of Excel risk registers all over the show with the associated issues of compiling that data into reports, sharing those with the organization, and with that, the lack of supporting data-driven decisions. And in terms of how we organize ourselves around risk, there may be not clear ownership and accountability of risk, and all of that resulting in the inability to turn risk management into business benefit. And there is, of course, significant business benefit to good risk management. Just a few points on that. When we collect risk information throughout the business, then that's an important input to strategic decision making in the business, as well as improving operational efficiency. So risks that are being identified in the business, invariably, if we address those, we are going to end up with a more efficient, a more smooth operational process that is less likely to fall over. And in turn, that may well have a positive impact on our reputation and brand, legal and compliance aspects of the organization, and overall resilience and adaptability. So if that is what we are looking to achieve, let me tell you a little bit about the application that I will show you today that will hopefully help you get there. We call it Power Framework Risk. It has a whole range of features across the full life cycle of risk management, from initial identification to all the way through to governance and reporting, regular assessment and management of risk through appropriate treatment and so on. That's all in the box, and I will be showing you most of these items in this short demo today, be it at a relatively high level. Before we start the demo though, let me point out a very, very important aspect, and that is the fact that all of this is deployed in the Microsoft platform. And we find nowadays most organizations have an investment in the strategic Microsoft Cloud platform. They are Microsoft 365 users. And what you're seeing here is icons of particular services that are available in the Microsoft Cloud in what's called the Power Platform. And you might say this is a toolbox for digital transformation, allowing you to create applications rapidly with Power Apps. And that is indeed the technology that has created the application I'm showing you today. Power Automate is workflow technology that allows you to automate processes very rapidly. We have Power BI. Most people have heard of or use Power BI on a daily basis as a best-in-class tool for reports and dashboards. And we have things like artificial intelligence capability in the platform. We have the ability to store data in this with the database called Dataverse, which you see there at the bottom. So all of that is what we want to exploit for risk management and indeed other services that we have in the Microsoft ecosystem, like Microsoft Teams or SharePoint for document management or other tools that, for example, deliver task management. And it's the single platform approach that is of such huge benefit. The fact that all your team members are already in this platform, it's already secured for you. You know, that user community already has access with user accounts, maybe two-factor authentication and so on. And this application is not going to be hosted by us externally, it's physically deployed into your own Microsoft tenancy. And with that, one would hope to achieve much better collaboration, automation, integration, business intelligence, everything in the one platform that is so widely used in your organization already. Okay, that's the idea. And with that, we're going to switch over into the application itself. And I am going to show you a view of a risk register in my organization. So lots and lots of risks. And you see on the left a chart that associates these risks with different business units. And I can now group this risk and apply grouping, for example, by risk categorization. And everything that I'm showing you is entirely configurable. The data content, the view itself that I'm showing you here is a selection of many views that are available out of the box. But as an end user, I can go ahead and maybe modify the columns that I'm seeing in the view by adding further ones or removing columns. I can move columns around. I can apply filters and whatever else. I can also then store views of my own preference that I can then reuse in future sessions. One important categorization in the system is what we call risk level, whereby we have operational versus strategic risks defined. Strategic risks are the ones that are monitored by the executive team. These are the big ticket items, and operational risks are those that are managed by individual business units that affect day-to-day processes, and those can indeed be linked to strategic risks. So, for example, let me click into IT, and I can see the IT department currently owns 4 operational risks. Now, another view of the same risk register is available through Microsoft Teams, because I have chosen to implement this application in a Teams container. And obviously, you can imagine this is going to maybe drive a better culture around risk, because people are continuously working in teams anyway. So, you know, being able to put risk information in front of them in a Teams context may well help us with adoption, making this whole thing a little bit more accessible. And you can see here on the left, there's obviously many Teams environments, but I have a Teams environment specifically for enterprise risk with channels for different departments. And here in IT, indeed, IT risks are shown right here. I can also use the Teams experience to publish reports, and there is a whole bunch of rich Power BI reports out of the box. And here, for example, is a report that reports specifically on my key strategic risks, here grouped by risk category, and I can hover over a particular strategic risk to see a list of operational risks that are attached to this strategic risk. And we can see the managing business unit for those risks. And here's a link that would allow me to drill into every one of these strategic risks. We're not going to do that quite yet. I'm just going to flip us back into the main application to just explain the concept of those business units a little further. So my business units are listed in a particular table that is populated when we set up the system. And again, I'm just going to click on this little hierarchy logo here to see those same business units now shown in a hierarchical fashion. So you can see here 3 departments reporting into the finance directorate, and if I go up a level, you can see there are various directorates with their departments underneath and so on. And so what I'm going to do is jump back into my IT department, where existing risks are listed for IT. There are also down here various issues, because we also have issues management in the context of risks. And I can see for the IT department, it's actually myself who is the senior risk owner. So there's that role of a senior risk owner for each of our business units. Okay, so we are going to raise a brand new risk right here. So here you see a screen that has plenty of information to be populated for a risk, and it is entirely configurable. Let me show you of that. And right at the top, we're seeing key stages of a risk lifecycle. Again, those stages are subject to configuration if you want to call them something else, or include additional stages, or reduce the number of stages that you have. That's completely possible. Let me start entering a risk names, one that I have prepared earlier, so I don't have to type it all out. So I'm just going to paste that in. And this is a risk that describes our reliance on a particular vendor. And the risk of that vendor not performing for a particular infrastructure refresh initiative that we've got going on. Now, we can here identify whether this is an operational or strategic risk, and it is, of course, an operational one. And we can also say, is this a standard or a perpetual one, meaning that a standard risk actually has a close stage at the end. So you can see these stages can be modified for particular risk categories. And we are expecting to eventually close this risk down, fully mitigate it. That's certainly the expectation. This is not going to be with us forever and a day. We are going to also determine the risk category that applies. And this is, again, a completely configurable list of categories. Often I'm asked, could there be multiple categories associated with a risk? The answer is yes, but what we want is a primary category, and we could by all means have a column called secondary category where that same list appears again, and I get to pick a few more, but it is the primary category that will influence some of the calculations of red, amber, green status resulting from the risk score that's going to be applied to this risk from following risk assessment, which we are going to do in a minute. So risk category is assigned. We're also going to nominate a key strategic objective for reporting purposes. You know, what is the key strategy of our organization that might be negatively impacted if this actually turns into an issue? And we're going to say it's going to impact on our technology innovation. Okay, next I'm going to fill in a risk summary, and you can see me, I'm being prompted here to apply a particular format that is best practice in my organization. That's the recommendation. I should structure the summary in that way. And again, I'm just going to copy in one that I prepared earlier, and I'm going to do the same with a description, something that has a little more detail describing my concern for this particular vendor. And you know, they are supposed to commit a dedicated team to our project, and there's a risk that they might not be able to do that. Right, with that, I'm going to click Save. And what we're going to see is that a risk ID has been created, a unique identifier that's going to stay with the risk. One other point I want to make is if we have any questions or queries about the content of the screen, we do have an online knowledge base. So I can go and open up a help panel and click on the knowledge article that is going to explain the general form in great detail. We don't have to read through all that because I'm here to explain it in person. But that's certainly something that is available throughout the tool access to online help. Now, we are going to categorize this risk a bit further. We're going to say, is this a threat or an opportunity? Opportunity is obviously to potentially be exploited as something very positive, and the treatment options will be modified accordingly. But we are going to say that this is a threat to our business, and we are going to treat this risk through various mitigation activities. Some other settings that influence reporting, as well as approval processes. So I could say that a future risk assessment should be subject to workflow approvals. I'm also going to say that this risk needs to be assessed every 30 days. And again, that can automate a reminder process, and we'll be able to see that a risk is overdue for reassessment. For now, I am going to move this risk on to the next stage. I've done the work to do the initial identification of this risk, and so I'm ready to progress this to the next stage. And again, what you need to know is that this could be controlled through security roles. So I might be prevented from progressing this risk myself. It might need the risk owner of my department that will need to agree that this risk can go into the register and review the information that I've entered, in which case I might submit a request for approval to progress. And that person would be notified, they would come in here and do that for me. For now, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to take this forward to the assessment stage, and we're going to click refresh. As a result of this, you can see that there's some more tabs appearing across the top. The data content is becoming richer the further we go into the process. Again, all configurable. The content that is available here is down to you, and you might choose to take things out or add things in. So one thing to say here is as well, now that I'm starting to assess this risk, I might look at appropriate controls that exist in my organization that might be applied to this particular risk. Again, very quick idea about how controls are defined in the system. So down here, the link to my risk controls article. And risk controls are measures and procedures that are implemented to manage and mitigate identified risks. So it's the kind of processes that we have in the business that are either preventative, directive, detective, or corrective in the way that they manage risk. And so my job now is to select appropriate controls that are relevant to this particular risk, and I'm going to essentially start searching my library of controls that are in existence in my organization. Here they all are, and you can see these are grouped into particular control groups that are, of course, completely configurable. So there's controls linking to define risk processes or processes in the human resources area, operational risk controls, and I am particularly interested in supplier risk controls because, of course, this is a supplier-related risk, so that's of particular interest to me. So I'm going to pick all these up and attach them to my risk to clarify that these are all relevant in mitigating my risk. And as I'm doing this, you can see that there's a column here of control effectiveness. I can drill into any of these controls to find out what that's about. So here's all the information we're restoring against a risk control. It's the type of control. It's a process. It's linking to another process definition that we have in the system. So there's a library of processes defined. And the interesting thing is here that this risk control itself can be regularly assessed. And you can see up here is the details of the most recent assessment. So my colleague Alex, quite a while ago, assessed this control and found it to be appropriate in design and fully effective. And while we're looking at this control, we can see, generally what risks have been attached to this control throughout the business, where the success of this particular process will help us mitigate these risks. So there's two of those, and obviously what the top one is the one that we are currently working on. Okay, so that was a little bit about controls. Whoops, I jumped all the way out of this risk. Let me go back in. Next thing to do now is start to think about assessment. And this is where I'm going to introduce a little module here, an interesting feature that is our artificial intelligence assistant. So my AI assistant packages AI capability in an unusual way, and not something that you see. I don't know whether you have played much with AI features like ChatGPT or Copilot in the Microsoft context, where you are yourself being requested to prompt the AI for responses, and you're putting a question to the AI, and a lot of the skill of getting value from this is in the way that this prompt is worded. Here we are taking all of that skill and essentially attaching that to simple buttons. So there are various buttons available here. Some of these are essentially shown in red because they may not be relevant as yet. But here's an assessment guidance button. So I'm asking the AI to help me generate some guidance as to how I should be assessing this risk. And it's picking up information about this risk. It's generating an AI query for me in the background and coming back with various suggestions of how I should be assessing the likelihood of this risk and the consequence. So it's saying, for example, in terms of likelihood, well, check the track record of this vendor. Have we used this vendor before on other projects? What is the type of technical resources that are required, and are they widely available in the market? Is the project very complex? And to what extent is the project really dependent on quick step solutions and so on? And in terms of the consequence, what is the impact on the delivery schedule? Should they fail to deliver the quality of the project, and so on and so on? And I could modify this information, I could overtype it, but I am actually just going to save it back into my project, because there is a particular box down here which is assessment guidance. And notice as well, there's another box here for mitigation plan. This is a high-level narrative that I could attach to this risk to essentially store some information about what is the overall approach for a mitigation plan. And again, I could ask the AI to please help me with that. Can you suggest, what might be the appropriate steps to mitigate this risk in the future? And it's coming up with a bunch of suggestions, developing a contingency plan, monitoring progress, communication, and so on and so on. And again, I'm just going to accept it. Again, I could be overtyping this or modifying this. So AI has generated some useful content for me that I've now attached against this risk. And with that, we're going to proceed and create the first risk assessment. So clicking on the assessment tab shows me a screen where in the future assessment history is going to be shown. I'm going to be going to the bottom here and saying I want to create a new risk assessment. And the system knows that this is the inherent risk assessment. Inherent being the risk assessment in absence of any mitigating activities. This is what we find as we identify the risk. And I'm going to backdate this slightly and saying at the beginning of July, I could put some commentary against it. And at this point, this is where the assessment guidance is showing. And this will be shown again and again as I create repeated assessments against this risk. I will always be able to refer back to the guidance to help me consider where we are when it comes to assessing and scoring this risk. We're scoring this risk in terms of likelihood and consequence, and I'm going to say that at this point, this is a possible risk, and the impact would be fairly major. Now, when I click Save, then what you see here is that the system is calculating a risk score of 12, and this is simply multiplying the likelihood times consequence, 3 by 4 equals 12, and it is saying that that is a red, very high risk rating. And we're about to tell you how that is calculated. For now, let me just close this assessment. And we're going to see that this risk rating has now been rolled up to the top of the screen to say this is now the risk rating, the risk RAG, red, amber, green status attached to this risk, which happens to be within tolerance. So how did the system arrive at these values? Well, it's looking up settings that we have created against the risk category. So let's explore the operational and service quality risk category. And this is the screen where the category is configured. It has a name, as we know. It has an appetite statement that we use on reporting with various threshold settings for appetite. And the risk ended up being within tolerance because it had a score of 12. Our risk tolerance threshold is 12, so within 12, it's going to show us amber within tolerance. Up to 8, it would have been green because that's within appetite. Beyond 12, it's going to be red. And here are some threshold settings also that do this in aggregate. So when we add up all of the risk ratings across all of my risk in the system against this risk category, we can set a risk appetite RAG against the category overall. And the threshold here is 140, and adding up all the risk ratings right now in the system comes up with 126. So again, the overall risk appetite rating for this category is within tolerance. And then here's another opportunity for configuring the RAG, the risk score rating in itself in terms of its red, amber, green, where we're looking at the likelihood consequence scores 1 to 5, 1 to 5. So I think we're 3 by 4, so we're sitting here. So that gives you an idea of how the risk category impacts the actual scores that we end up within the system following an assessment. One other thing now that I want to explain is the related records tab. It's a good idea to enrich the data content that we are compiling here against this risk with potentially relationships to other data entities that are of importance to us in the business. So you can see, for example, that I can choose to relate this risk to a particular vendor account. And I'm going to do that because, of course, we know that this is a supplier-related risk, and here's a particular vendor account. And so you can see I have a vendor table, and I'm going to pick quick step solutions from the list. Now that I've done that, I can click into quick step solutions to find out more information about this vendor. So you can see there's a whole account table in the system. Now this is an opportunity for integration. The vendor table that we have in this application may well be populated through automated integration processes that maybe pick up all of your suppliers from wherever the master table of suppliers is stored in your organization, maybe a financial accounting system. And one thing I wanted to point out is that this technology platform is amazing for integration. So here I'm showing you a view of built-in connectors, interfaces, ways of integrating with a wide set of solutions, databases, cloud services but even Office tools like Excel and SharePoint and so on. And so we could quite happily maybe connect to an SAP system to pick up data, or maybe you have a Dynamics F&O system in the business. So if I click on that, then you will find documentation available to integrate with Dynamics financials and operations. And there are a number of template workflows readily available that I can use as starting points to build an integration. So it would be really easy to implement one of these workflows to automatically execute every night and bring vendor data across from F&O, so that this information here would not be editable. I would just be harvesting information from another of your organizational applications for the purpose of tagging risks. So right now, Quick Step Solutions, it has a risk tab here, so I can now see what other risks have been tagged in my organization against this vendor. And ultimately, I end up with some intelligence around how risky my vendors are. Where are they involved in the business? What other business units are tagging this vendor as having risks attached to them? And that's an important piece of information for, of course, managing this supplier. Now, if I take you back to the related screen, we have other ways of giving context to this risk. So for example, this may be a risk that's related to a particular project. As we know, the vendor works within a technology project for us. And guess what? I can search projects. So again, we have a table here that can be populated from project systems. And I'm going to say, yes, this is the particular project that is associated with this particular risk. And again, I could drill into this, see what other risks are attached to this project. And if available, I could possibly even jump into the project information that sits in another system. And that's what I'm showing you here. This actually jumps into our own project PPM tool, Power Framework PPM, a separate application, which is where we're grabbing project information for the sake of defining business risk attached to that particular project. Oops. So with that, let's go back to the original screen. And since this is an operational risk, another relationship we want to build is to a particular strategic risk. So next time we come to reassess our strategic risk, we want to make sure that whoever does that is aware of this operational risk. So we're going to attach this to the infrastructure and technology risk. And within that risk, someone will be able to see all of the operational risks that are potentially impacting the next assessment of that strategic risk. And so, other things we can tag is quality processes, and we could enrich this related to screen further. Maybe it's risk management relating to property, assets, buildings, products, services, data content that is relevant to your organization could be brought into this application for the purpose of providing more context to risk, for richer analytics, for more value that we can derive from the data that we're compiling here. And with that, I'm going to progress this risk to the next stage now. And we're going to say that this risk is ready to be monitored. And upon refresh, we now see that there is issues and task tabs available now. So we're starting to get ready to put some mitigation tasks on the system, for example. So you can see here there's task containers, and I'm going to go back to my AI assistant and say, hey, assistant, can you help me generate some mitigation tasks? Now, we know it's already given us an overall narrative for a mitigation plan as a summary, but I actually want to convert that into specific tasks that I can assign to people. So again, behind the scenes, this is passing in all of the information that we've already compiled about this project to prompt the AI in the most meaningful way. And here we are being suggested with a whole bunch of tasks that are particularly relevant. I could possibly take some out. I can modify the content, but again, just for now, I'm just going to accept all of them in. And I'm going to see those tasks populating a task register here for mitigation tasks. So first of all, a key mitigation task is to develop a contingency plan. So this is an AI-generated task with a full description. It's assigned me as the task owner. I'm not happy with that. I'm probably going to get someone else. So, you know, and the people that I can invite here, or that I can assign, are of course users in my Microsoft 365 tenant. You know, I can invite people from the business to this application wherever they are. They already have user accounts in my wider Microsoft Cloud. Of course, I can bring them in. I can assign them a user role, which defines what they can see, what they can do, and the securities are very powerful. So we can, for example, make them members of a particular business unit, and they can only see risk in their own business unit. Okay, so I'm going to say Lydia needs to do this. And as you would expect, I can generate notifications. Lydia might be emailed as a result. And I'm going to say, hey, you've got until the end of this month, this is urgent, to generate a contingency plan. And with that, let's go back to the plan. So, you know, I can go through and work through these tasks. I can add some others myself. We can see here assessment tasks on the right. We could, through automation, generate future assessment tasks when the next assessment is due. I'm going to generate one right here, create a new risk assessment. This would be a residual risk assessment. We've done the inherent one earlier, and we're going to do that as of today. We're reassessing the risk again. I could put some commentary again to say, hey, you know, we've seen the vendor collaborating. They've nominated lots of personnel. Things are going well. So this is still a possible, well, let's say this is more of an unlikely risk now. And in any case, the impact would now be moderate because we've already made some good progress. So as a result of that now, we are seeing a green rating against this risk, and saving this, closing that assessment now shows me we're all good. The risk is showing moderate. It is within appetite. So the risk is going in the right direction. Had that not been the case, had we discovered issues with this vendor, you know, the issues tab is available here for me to record those. And again, this is a completely configurable form where I could monitor particular problems that have occurred. I can categorize those. I can assign severities and due dates again for monitoring purposes. And much of the monitoring, of course, happens in reporting. So if we jump back into the reports that are delivered out of the box, here is one, for example, that is looking at the risk relationships that we've built in particular. And so you can see here the report building with categorizations by vendor, by project, by process. You know, instantly I can see that ABC Contractors has a lot of risk attached. Quickstep, the vendor we've been talking about in the risk we've just generated, is right here. And indeed, here is the risk we've just created here in this report, and I can click on the link that's given in the report to, you know, and that's much of the user experience in any of the reports. There's a link there, and if I have the rights to access this risk, then I can navigate straight to the risk to see the full information right there, and also do something that is quite interesting here. I can look at audit history, where I get a field-by-field record of who modified this risk over time. In this case, myself and other processes. So, this is where the risk changed to level 6. All the field level detail is recorded here, so we can track back to see exactly who updated what on this particular risk. Let's look at some of the other reports from a risk management perspective. Actually, no, let's look at assessment monitoring. And I'm going to make this slightly bigger. This is a useful report to provide us with some governance in terms of the frequency of assessment. So we talked earlier about the ability to specify a frequency value, something that should happen every 30 days. And actually, with my reassessment, that was 24 days after, that's based on the assessment date. And so since then, it's been 1 day, and there's 2 assessments on file. And so you can see the assessment history and a red, amber, green status, whether we're doing it often enough, is what this report allows us to see. And the little spark line here giving me a very nice little visual representation of how these risks are going. Another important feature in the system is snapshotting. So our risk data is being snapshotted every month, for example, or at a frequency that you determine through an automated process that runs overnight. And that snapshot data we can go back to report and create these kind of trend reports where we can see in the past or particular months how many risks were active, what was their red, amber, green split in terms of risk appetite, for example, and what is the trend in terms of historical cost exposure, for example. So with that, I think I'm going to leave it there in terms of the demo of the application itself. There's quite a few other features that I could go into, but I think with that you would have a relatively good idea of the overall look and feel and capability of the system. And if I was to summarize the benefits of what you've seen, I'm hoping that you would agree that this system will give us the opportunity to drive better adoption, more adopted risk culture, in that risk information can be made available to so many more people in the business. We can assign risk ownership across different business units through a consistent way of capturing, assessing, and monitoring risk. And with the data that we collate, that single source of truth of risk data, we should be achieving better decision making throughout the organization. And with that, the business benefits are, of course, significant, from increased compliance to all the way to avoiding potential catastrophic events. And with that, we're going to finish on time, and I thank you for your attention. So you're welcome to email me. You're also very welcome to go to powerframework.com and request an in-person demo if you would like a personal conversation about how Power Framework risk can be deployed to help your own organization. And with that, I say thank you very much, and we'll hopefully talk again soon.